On a day brimming with excitement, joy, and the pounding of drums, everyone had gathered to witness the Battle of Legends. Yes, the very battle that would decide the fate of the Ling clan. A battle that could elevate it to the ranks of the first-class clans. On the left stood our hero, Van, the clan's master and founder, a man of legendary abilities who commanded a colossal whale that no one dared to challenge. On the right stood his opponent, a man who commanded a giant ape infused with fiery energy, a direct counter to the whale's own power. And so, the battle began. The clash erupted as the two titans hurled themselves at each other with unfathomable might, so fast and fierce that the human eye could barely follow. Blows rained down from left and right. Water exploded in every direction, drenching some of the stunned spectators who could hardly believe the sight before them. Then, Van leapt high into the air and declared firmly, "No escape," clasping his hands together and unleashing a strike that shook the very ground. But his opponent did not wait for the attack to finish. He charged forward mid-assault, and the blazing giant ape lunged at the whale. The collision sent shockwaves through the arena, sparks scattering wildly from the sheer force of impact. The opponent struck Van with a blow so powerful that everyone was certain it would be his end. His disciples and friends stood frozen in fear, unsure of his fate. But, against all expectations, Van gathered every ounce of his strength into a single point, beginning to transform his whale. Its form shifted, its body grew larger, and it absorbed the blow aimed at it. The opponent tried to attack again, but the whale, now stronger than steel, absorbed every strike and hurled them back with merciless force. The moment of conclusion drew near. Both combatants gathered their full energy and launched themselves into their final attack. The resulting blast filled the entire arena with overwhelming force, ending in a massive explosion. And when the dust cleared, it was Van who emerged victorious, his whale triumphant. His clan would rise once more, fulfilling the dream of his ancestors, restoring its glory and respect. But suddenly, the whale lost control. Dark energy enveloped it, destroying everything around it, twisting its form and driving it to slaughter the very crowd in the stands. Van tried to dismiss the summon, but it was useless. The whale turned toward him with murderous intent. At that moment, Van knew his end had come. His life flashed before his eyes. He saw the clan he had devoted his life to building, the friends who had aided him in his journey. The moment the whale had transformed and crushed his dream before his very eyes, he saw the people retreating from him, leaving him powerless, unable to understand how it had all come to this. Closing his eyes, heavy with grief and unanswered questions, he died. But then, boom! He opened his eyes in shock. He was still alive, finding himself instead in a forest. Moving toward a stream to drink, he discovered something astonishing. His body had been swapped with someone else's. Stunned and confused, he barely had time to think before several men appeared in the forest, seizing him and throwing him into a locked room as questions swirled endlessly in his mind. "I'm certain I won that battle, but someone must have used magic on my whale to turn it into that form. I must find out who it was and take my revenge. I need to escape at once and search for every clue." Using his power, he attempted to summon his legendary beast to aid his escape, only for a tiny dog and a plant to appear. Disbelieving his eyes, he examined their abilities. The dog's strength barely matched that of a pigeon, while the plant seemed potentially useful, though he couldn't yet discern its purpose. Quickly, he ordered them to hide as footsteps approached. The guard entered, unshackled him, and led him to their leader. Van, having already loosened his restraints, followed until he was brought before a young woman, completely unaware of where he was or why he was there. He soon learned that the body's original owner had attempted to harass the leader and slip a drug into her tea, but had failed and been caught by her guards. The leader glared at him and said coldly, "Do you think killing you for your actions is enough? No, I will make you my slave, to torment whenever boredom strikes." Trying to diffuse the tension, Van replied lightly, "Why such malice, my lady? Kindness is far more beautiful," inching toward the door. But the leader said sharply, "Who gave you permission to leave?" and unleashed her beast upon him. Knocking him to the ground, Van roared back, "I won't yield to you," summoning his beast from the swirling smoke, only for the woman to burst into laughter. "What are these pathetic creatures? Do you think yourself strong?" Embarrassed yet defiant, Van shot back, "You'll see soon enough." The young woman attacked recklessly, but the small dog darted toward her serpent, narrowly avoiding its fangs. Van, with skillful timing, increased the dog's speed, allowing it to evade the beast's strikes. This left the woman astonished. How could a failure like Feng display such mastery? Then Van commanded the plant to bind the serpent, landing a heavy blow that nearly restrained it, but the woman poured more energy into her beast, breaking free, burning the plant to ash, and striking the dog as well. Leaving Van in grave danger, she launched her final final attack, hurling him into a pond behind him. He nearly drowned until he saw it. A fish. Not just any fish. It was the same species he had once evolved into, a giant whale. The woman mocked him. Do you think you can control that fish and fight me? Keep dreaming, boy. This fish was once among the mightiest beasts, but in the last summit battle, it turned on its master and killed him. Since then, no one has been able to awaken its power. All others of its kind were hunted down. This is the last one left on the continent? Shocked, Van replied, enough talk. Attack me if you dare. Surprised by his audacity, she attacked with full killing intent. At that instant, Van surged upward with renewed strength, seizing the serpent by its jaws, forcing the fish to swallow it tail first. In a flash, it was gone. The woman stared in utter disbelief. She collapsed to the ground in defeat as Van emerged from the lake, sarcastically thanking her for the hearty meal. Before slipping away just before the guards arrived, the guards gave chase in a fierce pursuit. But Van evaded them with ease, using the plant once again, waving with a grin as he vanished into the distance. In the morning, the guards approached the young lady to apologize for failing to capture that boy. But the moment their words reached her ears, she lost her temper and unleashed a torrent of insults upon them. For this was the fourth humiliation, my friend, as if she were telling them, swallow this disgrace this time, and enough with the past failures. She then broke down in tears, her heart writhing in agony. But suddenly her brother arrived, having come specifically because his sister was distressed. He asked her angrily, "Who did this to you?" She recounted every detail of what had happened and told him that the boy had managed to use the catfish, perhaps even becoming stronger than she was. Her brother reassured her, saying, "My lady, that is impossible. No one in this world can draw power from that fish except for one man, yes, Van, and he has been dead for a year. As for this wretch who obtained it, do not worry about him, for I will soon end his life." The girl nodded in agreement, yet her heart remained uneasy, and with good reason, my friend, for the beast that now possessed the fish was the very same one who had once turned her into a whale, filled her entirely with his energy, and released her to seal the contract between them. The fish obeyed him completely, and it seemed the two were on the verge of unleashing devastation. The next day, Van arrived at that place to obtain transportation to his sect's headquarters. The man stationed there demanded the password, and Van spoke it, yet the man could not find his clan's name in the registry. He searched until he finally found it, only to reveal that it was now classified as a second-tier clan. In the past, Van had been granted swift transportation. This time, the man informed him, "Unfortunately, that is no longer possible. Your clan has been downgraded to 4th tier status, and the best you can get is a pig for transportation." Van was stunned by the news, yet he mounted the pig and sped toward his clan, sensing that something grave was about to happen there. And indeed, within the sect, a band of raiders had attacked to seize control, beating every student, killing their beasts, and coming close to slaughtering them all. At that moment, Van's friend intervened, summoning his own beast, a swift cat that tore through every enemy beast, leaving nothing in its path. The man tried to defeat it using his lizard, but failed, for the cat possessed abilities beyond imagination, eliminating all the enemy beasts in the blink of an eye before returning proudly to its master. The young man said, "Leave now quietly, before you share the fate of your beasts." The raiders seemed to listen, while the man mocked them and gloated over his victory. Yet, behind his back, the gang leader launched an attack toward the girls, intending to kill them. The cat instantly saw the attack and leapt toward it, but the lizard ambushed her from behind and, boom, killed her before everyone's eyes. Hero, upon seeing his cat slain, could not believe what was happening and rushed to save her, but it was too late. The guardian that had protected them was gone, and nothing could be done. At that moment, Van had nearly reached the village and saw the scene with his own eyes. The gang assaulting them, no one able to resist. They approached Haro to kill him, but the young lady tried to shield him, though the situation was hopeless. Until the dog appeared. Yes, Van had arrived, and he would not allow anyone to defile his sect. When the gang saw him, they were puzzled and asked, "Who are you? Leave now before you get hurt." But do you imagine Van would allow anyone to trample on his sect? Never. He ordered the dog to attack, and though the lizard quickly intercepted, Van launched a second strike that sent the lizard crashing to the ground. Panic spread among the gang, and they unleashed all their remaining beasts against him. Van could have destroyed them all with the catfish, but he chose not to reveal it before the sect members. Instead, he drove them outside the grounds and annihilated all their beasts there. When his enemies realized he was still alive, they were terrified. He told them, "Listen carefully. Whoever dares return here will not leave alive." Witnessing his power, they surrendered and fled, muttering curses under their breath. Van returned to the sect gate, and when Ling saw him, she ran to thank him. But before she could finish her words, he suddenly embraced her and said, "I am so happy to see you again." The girl, confused, asked, "Who are you?" He was about to answer, but the memory of having once been killed because of a traitor stopped him. He feared dragging her into his troubles, so he simply said, "I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else and hugged you by accident." He then entered the sect, only to be struck by grief. Everyone had been beaten, their beasts were dead, and even Harrow could not move. Van looked at him and remembered the first time he had seen that cat, how happy Harrow had been with her. Then he saw the broken look in Harrow's eyes and understood the heavy burden he bore. Ling rushed to check on him, but he left her side and said, "I'm sorry, I'm leaving this sect. I can't endure anymore." Ling tried to calm him and change his mind, but he had lost all hope, saying, "The sect died the day the master died a year ago. Without him, we can do nothing. You should leave as well." Van's heart shattered upon hearing those words. The dream he had spent his life building was collapsing before his very eyes. He tried to stop Harrow, promising to help rebuild the sect, but Harrow was beyond hope and left in sorrow. The rest of the members followed him, leaving only Ling behind. They all turned their backs on the sect and performed the farewell rites. Van could not bear the sight. He fell to the ground, begging them for a second chance to set things right, but it was in vain. Everyone had abandoned him once again, and he no longer knew what to do. Sorrowful, almost otherworldly moments passed. The next day, those who remained in the sect gathered, Van among them, eating in deep sadness, uncertain of their next step. Then the young man set his food aside and said, "The past is over. Now we must look to the future and choose a leader for ourselves." Van expected they would choose him, but instead they turned to Ling, saying, "What do you say, leader?" Everyone agreed, for she was the eldest among them, and they welcomed the idea. They all went to pay their respects to her. At first she was tense and hesitant, but she gathered her courage and accepted the role, declaring, "Yes, I will not allow the Ling clan to fall, and I will not disappoint my master's hopes." Then the youths began to ponder what they should do first, and Ling told them that after the previous battle, all their animals had been killed, and they no longer had any magical beasts. She then took out that map and pointed to the places where they might find something. But do you think Van would let them search here? Instead, he led them to a place no one knew until they reached the edge of a cliff. There, Van turned to them and said, "Look, is there anyone behind us?" They answered, "No one from this side," and suddenly he descended swiftly down the slope. They grew worried for him, but the moment they saw him, they felt reassured and followed him down. Everyone wondering, for Van knew this place well. Yet he began distracting them with conversation, telling them all sorts of things. Then he began explaining to them about the beasts and their ranks, the weakest being the cat, then the tiger, then the panda, and finally the dragon. He told them that this place rarely held strong beasts, so there was no need to be afraid. But that girl caught sight of a small fox with 3 tails and pointed it out to Van. The moment he saw it, he was shocked and realized that someone was here. Indeed, someone attacked them. Van narrowly dodged the strike, and the strange young man said to them, "Who are you, and how did you know of this place? I will not spare you." The youths knew they had no strong beasts, so they pretended they could crush him with ease, making him uneasy, and they increased their act until he grew afraid and said, "Fine. Do what you wish, but leave me be." Then he went deeper into the place, and they ran after him until they reached the leader of the place, the panda. The confrontation began fiercely, and the panda was not jesting, for it possessed legendary abilities and could create an illusion in which they became trapped. They kept fighting it with all their strength, but it was incredibly tough, and they achieved nothing. Then Van summoned his dog and ordered it to attack, yet the dog was unaffected by the illusion the panda had created. Not understanding the orders, it simply sat and watched them strike one another until at last it grasped the situation and leapt upon the panda from behind with a decisive blow that defeated it. Everyone was stunned, unable to believe their eyes. The strange young man then pulled out a rope, bound the beast, and ran off with it, escaping from them. They tried to pursue him, but it was to no avail. The youths were deeply saddened and did not know what to do. Meanwhile, the strange young man had entered another place, heading toward Yang, the commander of the guards, who had previously captured his other beast and promised him that if he caught a replacement beast, he would return his fox. Indeed, he came to him and told him he had fulfilled the deal and that Yang should return his fox. But Yang deceived him, saying, "As agreed, I shall give you what you want," then threw something upon his shadow. The poor man rushed toward his beast to free it, but suddenly the other fox attacked him, and soldiers surged from every direction. He could not understand what was happening until Yang shouted, ordering them to stop. "But you do not know with whom you are dealing." This was Yang, the leader of the bandits in the region. He ordered the guards to attack him from every side. At first the man held them off, but when Yang moved his fingers, his beast leapt from the shadow, and with a single strike brought him down beneath its feet. As for the youths, they did not know what to do, so they decided to take any means of transport and search for beasts elsewhere. But one of the men told them that the pig they had possessed was stolen yesterday, and the one who took it had not returned it yet. Van realized they were talking about him and said, "We have a solution. I have some money. Let us go and buy beasts from the market." They went with him, and there Ling chose a butterfly, whose price was high, and the seller was overcharging. Then Jian intervened and bargained with him until he gave it to them for free. Van's friend chose another beast, and the atmosphere was calm, But on their way back, the seller called out to them mockingly because they were from the Ling clan, which made them angry. Suddenly, they spotted the panda in the place, as well as the 2 foxes of that strange young man, whose name by the way was John, and they could not understand what was going on. The seller ordered them to leave so they would not give him a headache, but Van tricked him into thinking the panda had escaped. The seller opened the box to look for it, and that was their chance. They freed it at last. John stepped forward, wishing to make it her contracted beast. It refused at first, but before her persistence and determination, it agreed. She made the contract with it, and it became hers. Then they freed John's beasts and learned from him what had happened, that he had been forced to do that yesterday, and that he was now being held by Yang, and he asked them for help to free him. But the youths knew their own condition was miserable now, and that they themselves were in need of help. They returned to the sect's headquarters, pondering what they would do. There, Van handed a letter to Ling and said, "I found your name on it." The moment she saw the handwriting, she knew it. Yes, it was a letter from Fen, the head of the sect. She read it and found that it bore an indication to a place in the forest. She went there and found a bag with a letter upon it. Ling began to read, hardly believing what she read, tears streaming down her face, for she realized that to her master she had not merely been a student, but like a daughter. More than that, he said to her, "I know that when you read this letter, I will have died, and perhaps the sect's condition will have declined, but you are the only one capable of restoring it to what it was, even making it the strongest sect in the world, and fulfilling the dream I could not achieve. I have left you in this box some energy pills to aid you in building your strength. I know they cannot compare to the hardships you will face, but I wanted to be the first word with which you begin your line." When she finished reading, she could no longer contain herself and burst into tears, and it seemed she now knew what she must do. After Ling finished reading the letter, she made her decision instantly. She would go after John to save him. At that very moment, Yang was already torturing him, and John could do nothing to resist. Imagine if this went on. He would have endured endless suffering. But no, the entire team arrived just in time. They took down all the guards and rushed straight to the room where John was being held. They freed him immediately, and his beasts leapt toward him in joy at his return, for they regarded him as their leader. John, astonished that they had not abandoned him, asked, "Why would you do this, even after I deceived you before?" Van, wearing a sly smile, replied, "It's simple. We're going to steal everything in this place, and we need your help." John chuckled and agreed. "All right, looks like we're about to cause some real chaos." Quickly, they split into 2 groups, one to free all the stolen beasts, while Van and his monsters headed for the vault. Meanwhile, Yang arrived at the scene, saw the guards sprawled on the ground, and realized the battle was over. Instead of chasing them right away, he wandered into the treasure chamber, in a cheerful mood, admiring the wealth before him. Suddenly, he sensed movement behind him. It was Yang's shadow beast, standing there and saying, "You think anyone who enters my domain walks out easily? Keep dreaming, boy." Van couldn't pinpoint the beast's location, so he tried to flee, hurling anything he could in its path to slow it down, but nothing made a sound of breaking. When he turned back, what he saw shocked him, and an idea struck. He turned the place upside down, smashing treasures, driving Yang into a fury as his riches were destroyed before his eyes. Just as Van was about to escape, the beast struck him in the stomach, leaving him severely injured. At the same time, the second group had finished freeing all the creatures and were preparing to leave when a blast echoed and Van staggered in, wounded, asking them to stall Yang while he recovered. Yang soon arrived, and the fight began. At first, they managed to hold him off, but not for long. Yang unleashed his full power on the shadow beast, evolving it, and began battering everyone with overwhelming force. No one could withstand him. John and his beasts were struck down, as was the panda, leaving only Ling untouched. But Yang wouldn't let her be. He seized her in front of everyone with his beast, ready to crush her, declaring, "From this day, the Ling clan is finished, and today I will kill you all." Just as he was about to end her, Van summoned every last ounce of his strength and unleashed his evolved fish, delivering a decisive blow. The air shifted, and water began to fall around them. Ling couldn't believe her eyes. Van was wielding her master's fish. She thought she was dreaming, but he reassured her. "It's me, Van, here to finish this." Yang tried again to gather all his power into the shadow beast, but it was useless. Van used his plant from a distance to bind it, while the fish descended from above, draining all its energy. The shadow beast struggled in vain, for this was the catfish of final judgment. It was over. The beast was drained entirely, its core dropping to the ground. Someone shouted, "Destroy it now." Yang tried to seize it and escape to revive the shadow beast, but John used his beast to snatch it away. Yang struck him with all his might, and the core slipped from his grasp. Van lunged with all his speed to shatter it, but Yang blasted him down again, snarling, "No one can defeat me. Today I will kill you all." Van searched desperately for anyone still able to destroy the crystal, but all had fallen, surrendering to their fate as death loomed over them. Suddenly, a girl appeared atop the roof and shattered the core in a single strike. Yang, enraged, tried to attack, but with one swift motion she ended him. Van stared at her. He recognized her. Yes, she was the girl he had freed on his way back to the sect, sparing her from captivity. He thanked her for saving them, and she blushed shyly before fleeing, clearly fond of him. Afterward, they divided the treasures fairly, but when one tried to be greedy, the dog stepped in and forced him to take the smallest share. Van then spotted a small beast he liked, tamed it with his power, and formed a contract. Suddenly, a strange pain surged through his body, knocking him unconscious. His comrades carried him back to the sack to rest. When he awoke with no memory of what had happened, they assured him all was well. John offered to make him breakfast to lift his spirits. Taking advantage of the quiet, Van began training and evolving his beasts, then decided to visit Ling to tell her how he had managed to use her master's catfish. He found her weeping bitterly before her master's memorial. She sat with him and asked for the full story, so he told her how he had accidentally fallen into the lake and found the fish. Still, she remained sorrowful, saying, "I don't know why you remind me so much of my master. Your way of speaking, even your walk is like his. And today, when I saw you use the fish, I felt something strange. Like hope had returned to the clan. I want the truth. Are you my master's disciple, or even his friend? Or could you be the master himself? Please, tell me everything." Van was taken aback, unsure how to respond, but then he sensed two people eavesdropping outside the door. He thought, I can't let my plan be exposed. I must find out who betrayed me in the past. So he shifted the conversation, telling instead the story of the first girl who had tried to kill him and how he escaped her. Hearing this, the two eavesdroppers suddenly burst in, tied him up, and drove him out. Though his appearance was pitiful after being exposed, he saw it as a kind of victory. Days passed, and the time came for the national tournament, a fierce competition involving most of the clans, with legendary prizes for the victor. Ling gathered her 4 companions and set out for the registration site. They arrived to find a massive crowd, all eyeing them with scorn because of what had happened to their master Van, treating them as beneath even ordinary humans. Ling approached the supervisor to ask why there were so many entrants this year. He explained that the clan's weakness in recent times had drawn all the lesser sects, claiming they were stronger, and that if Ling's group could defeat them, they would be welcome in the tournament. Otherwise, nothing could be done. Angered, Ling faced further mockery from a man who had once stolen from them and betrayed them despite their help. When Van saw him, he remembered this was the same man who had aided him when he had nothing to eat, now daring to look down on them after their master's death. Would Van let this go? Never. He unleashed his dog upon him, ordering it to strike, then turned it on the others, letting everyone vent their fury. The confrontation ended with the Ling clan's easy victory. Van then approaches that man, his face swollen from the blows, and says in a firm voice, "The money you took from us, I will take it back from you many times over after the tournament. Wait for your turn, one after the other." Then he throws him to the ground and gives him the medicine. The examiner stands astonished at the strength and boldness of these youths. Then they mount the eagle and head toward the tournament arena. They are immediately received by that girl, who begins explaining the rules of the game and all its details. The summary of what she said: you must wear this bracelet on your wrist and never take it off for more than 3 minutes. And if you fall into the sea while wearing it, you lose the match. If you find yourself on the verge of losing, you may surrender, and touching your opponent means he is the one who loses. The tournament will consist of a series of tests, and the winner will be the one who collects the greatest number of points. Everyone agrees to the rules, and the first round begins immediately. The youths find themselves on an unknown island, not understanding what is happening, while a ship at sea watches them, carrying the important figures. Among them, that girl and her brother. Everyone announces the start of the test, and then the surprise occurs. The island rises above sea level, and all are in confusion. At that moment, one of the wing uses his power, and white spheres appear, spreading through the atmosphere and descending from the sky, then glowing with beams of light to mark their locations. The team that collects the highest number of these spheres will win this stage. Everyone begins collecting spheres already, and this boy picks up one after another, until he is about to take the second, but a spiritual beast attacks him and steals the point from him, and the atmosphere grows tense. The points increase among the teams, and one team reaches 18 points. Using a clever trick, they release their beasts and attach the bracelets to their legs, so that as soon as the beast approaches any point, they gain it, then retrieve the bracelets before the 3 minutes are up. But is it that easy? No, for someone notices the trick, catches the beasts, and keeps them away for 3 minutes, eliminating the team entirely from the competition. Van had noticed the trick and understood it, so he said to his companions, "Look, if we stay like this, we will surely lose, so we must split into 4 teams, each of us going in a different direction, and we meet with at least 5 points to secure a place in the first test." Everyone agrees and sets off, and they seem to improve their performance immediately. Van secures the first 2 points when suddenly he feels a strange presence in the area. Yes, before him appears a teen he knows from the past, and the dog, upon seeing that girl, runs to her and leaps to embrace her, as if it has a bond with the one before her. Meanwhile, Ling has obtained her first point and everything is going well, when suddenly 2 young men appear behind her wanting that point. The girl ponders the consequences if she loses it, not knowing what to do, when suddenly that boy appears and speaks to her. Yes, it is Harrow, their friend who left the sect and departed long ago. But the way he speaks has changed, and his voice is filled with arrogance, as if she no longer knows what has become of him. The 2 young men dislike his words and attack him with their spiritual beasts, but suddenly his cat appears and defeats them both. Ling stands stunned and overjoyed that the cat is still alive and that her friend is before her. But the 2 young men again release their spiritual beasts and attack, yet the cat settles the fight once more. The girl cannot understand how the cat is still alive, and when she looks at it she is shocked. Its form has changed, its flesh exposed, and it has become like an undead zombie. Harrow, in turn, attacks the 2 young men and nearly kills them, but they surrender immediately before he can finish them. Ling cannot comprehend his cruelty, nor believe what has happened to him. He then tells her that he has joined another, larger and stronger wing, and says, "As you have seen, they have made me stronger. Come and join us to protect yourself." But Ling refuses and suggests instead that he join them, affirming that their wing has grown larger after Van joined and that she is confident they will return as they once were, and better. Harrow grows angry and says, "Return? That is in your dreams. The sect died with the master, and you are nothing but remnants awaiting extinction. In any case, I have made my offer, and the next time we meet, we will be enemies." Then he departs. Ling is saddened by his departure, not knowing what to do, while nearby Van is walking and spots a point before him, which he takes. But suddenly a young man appears behind him and says, "This point is mine, my friend," seeing that Van is shorter. He begins mocking him, saying, "You fell and collided with my bracelet, so it became my point." The other youth grows furious and says, "Are you mocking me? I will show you." Then he unleashes his spiritual energy and summons his beast. Its power is immense, so great that its aura fills the place and is detected by the ship, and no one can believe that such a prodigy came from nowhere. The beast appears, and to everyone's shock, it is a dragon of legendary rank, seemingly about to cause massive destruction. By the way, Van's friend's name is Leon. Upon seeing it, Leon recalls his past, his father, and his family, who mocked him for his weak power, and he grows angry and rises as the youth attacks him, but the blow strikes a rock beside Leon, leaving him unharmed. It becomes clear that the dragon's strength depends on its master's strength, and since the boy is young and has not trained much, his control over the dragon is extremely weak. Leon seizes the opportunity and attacks him with his beast with all he has, but the boy does not yield. Instead, he channels the dragon's power into his own body and begins attacking fiercely, while Leon tries to counter but to no avail. The legend before him is stronger. Leon's beast takes a blow that sends it flying, and Leon is on the verge of defeat, but at the last moment the boy's father arrives and stops him before he can finish Leon off, saying, "My son, power exists to protect the weak, not to bully them. Since you have defeated him, there is no need to continue the fight." Long realizes his father is right, but they tell him that Leon had stolen his point first, which is why he grew angry and began the fight. His father says, "No matter, we will find another point elsewhere," and takes him away as if the tournament means nothing to them. When Leon witnesses this, he is deeply moved, realizing that the boy is different from him, indeed stronger than him, and that he must regain his honor and never lose again. He stands before him and says, "Next time, I will defeat you." Long replies, "Very well," acknowledging him as a rival, then departs, and it seems their friendship has just begun. We now move to the girl Yoon, who is walking, gathering points alongside her companion, Panda, whose mood was unsettled and inattentive to her words. She trailed behind him as if lost. They continued walking until they encountered 3 girls. Panda stepped forward to confront them. June was sitting hidden behind him, while Panda shouted angrily, demanding the girls surrender the 3 points they held. Curiously, they carried the points in their hands rather than placing them in their bracelets. Nonetheless, the battle commenced, and Panda swiftly defeated their spirit animals with ease. At that moment, June emerged, threatening the girls and ordering them to hand over the points quickly. The girls broke down before her, pleading to keep the points because originally there were 4 of them, but one had been kidnapped. The kidnapper threatened to kill her if they did not surrender 5 points. They had tried everything and concluded that their only solution was to hand over the 5 points to save their comrade. June felt profound sorrow for the girls and repeatedly returned to assist them. Indeed, the girls reached the man who was blackmailing them. told him they had managed to gather only 3 points, begging him to release their companion. Yet, the man pressured them relentlessly. One girl screamed until she nearly died. Suddenly, Panda appeared and smashed the man's head, sending him flying away. Joy filled their eyes, but abruptly they noticed a worm clinging to one girl's neck. It became clear that the man had taken precautions by placing another worm on her spine. If anything happened, he could kill the girl right before their eyes. Despair overwhelmed everyone, and June could not believe the girl would die because of her. She erupted in furious rage, reliving memories from her past. Her aura shifted. She seized the villain alone, overturned him, and finished him off. Meanwhile, Panda pursued the girl, grabbed the worm, and crushed it. Everyone then rushed to their fourth sister, embracing her. Yet, June was still emanating a strange energy from her body until she collapsed unconscious. Everyone hurried to check on her. After a while, she awoke, unaware of anything that had happened, and was astonished when she heard she was the one who defeated the villain. June bid farewell to them, walking away, but the boys called out to her, expressing their affection. They gifted her the 3 points as gratitude for what she had done, promising that in the future, they would join their clan and assist her with anything she needed. Meanwhile, the committee monitoring the group observed the distribution of points among all members. Currently, the Ling clan ranked 7th, and things were improving for them. Van was walking alone with a girl after she left her team and joined him. He said to her, "Who are you, and why are you following me? Consider your interests and stay away from me. Stick with your team." But she insisted on staying and said, "Remember our memories together. We have been together since long ago." Van tried to ask questions about his past and accidentally touched her hand. She struck him hard and said, "Ask from afar. You know you were a sick and vile person, ignored and shunned by society." Van was shocked by what he heard but replied, "Very well." Soon they met their friend, and finally, the group gathered on a slope, discussing the points and the upcoming stage. Suddenly, an old beast with immense energy appeared, demanding the points they carry. John told him, "The points are now in the bracelets, and if we fought now, no one would benefit. It would just waste time." The old man agreed and decided to leave. But suddenly an announcement was made to all. The first round had ended, and the second round had begun. Now, anyone holding a bracelet could steal all points from their opponent's bracelet. The old man's expression changed as he said, "Now I will benefit." He transformed and attacked Bam. He wanted to resist, but John stopped him, saying, "Let's run." John fled, leaving the other 3 team members behind, as they were not part of the sect, just mercenaries hired to fill numbers with no points. It seemed John had deceived them. Meanwhile, the old man ascended to the elder lady and killed her. The 2 behind her were terrified and surrendered immediately. The old man wanted to kill them but recalled the second rule: if anyone struck a surrendered person, they would lose the championship and be eliminated, so he let them go and walked away, trying to catch up with John to steal all his points. At that moment, the whole group assembled and noticed the girl, Jung, discovering she was Van's beloved, which shocked everyone. They wondered, "Since when do you love him?" Ling also arrived, and they counted their points. They had 20 points in total, which was a decent amount in the first stage. They continued planning how to gather points without killing anyone or causing trouble. They devised a devilish scheme and began executing it. Initially, 2 of them were searching for points somewhere and spotted 3 others gathered in one place. They lured their spirit animal to steal the points and then returned them. However, Panda tricked them and their location was revealed. They were ambushed and managed to seize 9 points. On their way to another group to repeat the plan, suddenly, someone appeared and trapped Jang, placing a beast upon her. The villain threatened them, saying if they did not hand over all their points, he would kill her before their eyes. Everyone was worried, especially Van, who did not want her harmed because of him. Ling gave all the points they had collected to the villain, who took her hostage and said he would release her once he was far from them in a safe place. Van did not want her to go with him and was worried, but he had no choice. The man indeed walked away with the girl, with everyone waiting for her release. 2 of the villain's 10 men stood behind as guarantees. A second later, an announcement declared the Jang team eliminated from the championship. Van exploded with rage, sensing something had happened to her. He attacked the 2 men before him, but suddenly, another announcement declared the team of the kidnapper also eliminated, leaving everyone confused. Van ran to the place to find out what happened, but met the girl on the way. She told him she was fine and recounted how she escaped the villain. She said she surrendered after catching him off guard and summoned her spirit animal, which immobilized him. She then forfeited the championship, forcing the villain to strike her lightly, thus losing, and she lost as well. She gave all the points to Van as a gift, saying, "This is for you, because you cared for me." She then boarded the vehicle and left before the 3rd round began. On the ship, everyone was stunned by the Ling clan's performance after eliminating 3 teams at once, advancing to 2nd place, and surpassing Haru, who was furious. The 3rd stage began, and the island started to sink. Everyone rushed to the highest point, preparing for a direct clash that would eliminate most teams. The Ling clan moved, releasing their spirit animals and preparing for battle. They arrived where Haru was, with his entire clan present, and the fight began immediately. Everyone split up. Haru faced Ling and Leon together, while another man used his octopus and grabbed Van by the leg, almost throwing him into the sea. At the last moment, Van threw the bracelets he held to John and said, 2 minutes and I will take it from you before time runs out. Meanwhile, Haru began his fight, and John was also set to battle the other man. Those two killed the dinosaur and everyone was stunned, unable to respond. Imagine that Van would not leave them like that. He grabbed his fish in the water and commanded the beast to head to attack it. The beast dodged the octopus's attacks with incredible speed and tied its arms. Van had barely 2 minutes left and had to finish the beast. The octopus's owner thought he had won, but the fish spun, creating a vortex that sucked the octopus in, absorbing its energy and emerging from the lake effortlessly. The plant with Van struck the man once, and boom, finished him. Then, Van approached John to take his bracelet. When John saw him, he was incredulous. Finally, someone will catch me and save me from the dinosaur. You know, Van, I was hiding your bracelet with me and fought all the beasts just to protect it. Everyone tried to strike me, but I stood like a lion to protect your bracelet, which was actually meant to steal from my friend. He said, take it and come help me. But Van took the bracelet, left it, and walked away. The light of life in his eyes had faded. Van ran after Jun and stopped Panda, saying, don't worry. I won't interfere in your fight. I just want you to change the color of my fish so no one recognizes it. Indeed, the fish changed color. Van reached Haru, activated combat mode, and grew intensely angry. He said, I will show you your place. He believed Haru was a traitor and the reason behind turning his whale into a zombie. Since his cat was also a zombie, surely Haru was involved. Leon repeated his plea to leave and help John against the dinosaur, but it seemed they could not defeat it. They all attacked the beast with all their might and foolishly, and the beast burned in front of them. They were about to rejoice, but the beast activated its special skill, eradicating all the fire and using it against them. None could move. The dinosaur was about to finish them when Boom Long arrived, saving the day by killing the beast. The dragon arrived late and thanked Leon. Everything was perfect elsewhere. June was trying to control Panda, who refused to listen and was taking hits everywhere. The opposing Panda was strong and she was helpless. Suddenly, she recalled her past and her teacher, Van, gained courage, grabbed the panda, and said, listen to me. They attacked the beast with a light assault, after which it changed form as before. John won and the group triumphed. The true battle began between Van and Haru. Haru activated his power. The cat prepared, and Van activated the power of his fish surrounded by water. Haru felt as if he was facing his teacher, having encountered the same attacks when his cat was alive. He was surprised to see Van performing the exact moves and grew furious, shouting at him. Haru struck with iron blows, but they were useless. He could not land a hit on Van. The fight continued, and he knew the battle would be long, especially with Van's strength reminding him of his teacher. Van trapped his cat in the water and began to win. Haru grew angry, recalling that his cat had survived that attack before, expecting it to flee, but it took a hit and was thrown against the wall. Haru continued to rage and attack, but Van delivered the final blow and won. Haru recalled his past and felt everyone had abandoned him and left him alone. He woke to find himself tied up and screamed to be freed. Van shouted once, asking, "What is your connection to the teacher's death?" Haru calmed down. Ling was shocked and asked why that question. Haru got angry and said, "Are you insane? Do you think the respected teacher was killed by me? Is your mind sound?" Van told him, "Yes, your cat turned into a zombie like the teacher's whale during the test, which means one thing, you know who did that." Haru laughed and said, "Now I understand why you are mad at me." He recounted how he left the sect and wandered away, trying to find a cure for his spirit animal but found none until he discovered this new sect that cured his cat. He joined them. As for what happened to his teacher, he did not know. Van frankly said, "As long as you have done nothing wrong, after this championship, leave the sect and return to us." Haru felt as if the teacher was speaking to him and promised to cooperate again. Suddenly, a girl from the opposing Fang's sect attacked the place and destroyed everything. She came to gather points and would not leave until she took them all. Ling distanced herself from Haru, who was still upset, and ran into the forest to fight the girl using her spirit animal. Ling was strong and managed to hit the girl but could not defeat her. The girl's power was immense. She threw Ling into the forest. Burning everything around her, Ling struggled and screamed, gasping for air, longing for someone to come to her rescue. Meanwhile, Haru stood recalling his memories, feeling intense pain in his heart for betraying the sect and wishing to return. He snapped back to reality at Ling's screams and rushed to save her. The girl was on the verge of losing consciousness completely, when suddenly Haru arrived at the scene. He carried her through the raging flames without being affected and left his own cat behind. He had decided to abandon it, his first and only companion, in order to restore his relationship with the sect sect and forget all past memories. Meanwhile, Ling was desperately trying to convince him to return, but he considered his cat to have died defending the sect that day. That cat was no longer his, but a sad memory. Tears streamed down his face in an intensely emotional scene. At that moment, atop the mountain, members of the Fang sect appeared, including the old man, the boy known as Abu Dara, and the girl who had accompanied them. They were the deadliest team in the tournament, having amassed the highest points so far. Not only were these three present, but their sect leader himself was also there, commanding them to eliminate all other teams. Indeed, they began descending the mountain and the battle ignited fiercely. John and Leon succeeded in killing the old man, while Jian defeated Abu Dira, and Van was fighting the girl in a battle that was complicated in every sense. The old man relentlessly struck John and his companion with unyielding blows that no one could block. The team struggled severely, unable to respond. Meanwhile, Long Tian watched from the mountain's peak, witnessing his friend being beaten once again. He had exhausted all his strength protecting him before, and now he had no skills left to aid. His father told him to stay back and wait, hoping they might win the tournament, but Long refused, saying, "You told me, if you find someone you consider a friend, never leave them. I have decided to use the forbidden skill." His father opposed this, but eventually said, "For your friends, it's worth the risk." Meanwhile, the old man had knocked down Leon and John and was about to kill them. Long refused to surrender. He caught up at the last moment and said, "Don't worry, I will protect you." Leon was overwhelmed with joy, speechless. Then Long commanded the dragon to take the old man away and struck him forcefully. The old man absorbed the blow, boosting his power and injuring the dragon. The old man fell defeated to the ground, yet this was not Long's forbidden skill in full. He had only unleashed 10% of his forbidden power. Then he soared toward the old man to finish him off. Despite the old man's attempts to strike back, he could not match Long, who greatly infuriated him. The old man unleashed all his strength, imprisoned Long, and was on the verge of killing him. Leon took the small beast to rescue him, but was attacked. Everyone feared death was imminent, but Long refused to let the old man win. He absorbed the dragon's entire energy and unleashed an immense bone-shattering blast that threw the old man far away. Thus, Long emerged victorious, and the old man was defeated. At the same time, Jian struggled to resist the boy fighting her, her blood flowing from wounds all over her body. The panda took her and tried to flee but was weakened and collapsed, bleeding from his mouth. Meanwhile, the boy prepared to launch his final attack. Jian recalled her master Van and her hidden abilities. She screamed at the top of her lungs, releasing her power. The panda blocked the attack, throwing the weapon aside. Jian struck the boy with a powerful blow that ended the battle, winning the fight for Jian and the panda. Only Van and the girl he was fighting remained. Despite everyone suffering during the attack, Van skillfully evaded all her strikes, using plants to trap her. Then his new beast appeared, transforming into a deadly weapon that utterly defeated her. Everyone celebrated their victory, and met Ling and Haru. The scene was magnificent as Haru gave Van his bracelet and told him to take the points inside it. Van was ecstatic. Haru asked when he would return to their sect, but Van replied he would stay in the second sect and seek the truth behind his master's killer. Meanwhile, the leader of the Fang sect activated his power, absorbing the energy of his followers and berating them. "You are worthless scum. I will show you what will happen." His aura and form changed, and he unleashed a massive strike. It hit no one but the turtle carrying the island. Water flooded the area, drowning everyone as they plunged into the sea. Ling fell helpless and close to death, but Van extended his hand and helped her. As he did for Lien and Long, time passed until everyone emerged from the water. The ship monitoring the tournament dispatched rescue teams for the drowning. Those who stayed underwater beyond 3 minutes were lost. The sect leader was delighted and incredulous. All rival teams had been defeated, leaving only Van's team in the tournament. Everyone wondered, would the champion be Van or the Fang leader? At that moment, the Fang clan leader was furious upon learning someone was still alive. He headed to the island to capture him. Van was hiding there, standing with his fish, which was evolving after absorbing the octopus's energy. He had brought a special stone, saying, "This is our only chance to win." The fish began to evolve, and the scene was electrifying. Elsewhere, the girl learned someone from Ling's wing was still alive, and she and her brother cheered for that wing, unaware this person was the one who had harassed her and stolen her brother's eelfish. Van prepared for battle. When the Fang clan leader saw this, he mocked Van, saying, "Prepare to lose." Van replied defiantly, "Face me with all your strength, so you cannot later claim ignorance." The Fang leader's rage boiled as he attacked Van, but Van skillfully countered with his fish's help. Yet the leader skillfully dodged every attack and lunged at Van with everything he had. Van fled wildly, avoiding his attacks. He approached a tree branch in front of him and toppled the leader to the ground. Van still provoked the leader in every possible way, searching for a chance to defeat him. Suddenly, the leader roared in anger and unleashed bony spikes flying from every direction. The fish deftly dodged the attacks, moving toward the leader's position. The leader then struck the ground with a seismic blow that shook the entire place. sending them flying apart. Van barely managed to block the attack, and the leader could not capitalize on the moment. He launched a legendary second attack. Everyone thought Van would fall, but Van refused to be silenced. He used a new skill, merging with the fish, which transformed into a much stronger form. The old man went mad, gathering all his strength and launching a powerful attack, but where was the fish after its transformation? It had become much more capable of dodging all attacks. The old man was baffled, unsure where or how to strike. Van used a plant beneath his feet to burn the old man, then approached the fish to calm it, saying, "Here, take this." The old man did not give up. He fired lasers from all over and attacked Van, seemingly intent on finishing the fight, but Van moved at incredible speed, evading every attack, unmatched by anyone. The leader focused his entire attack in one spot, hitting the fish. Everyone thought Van would lose, but the dog was there. Van used the dog, making it fly like a plane through the air, dodging all attacks, approaching the old man. Then Van unleashed his final beast, turning it into a weapon in his hands. Ling's wing was still present. One strike would end it all. Officially, Jin Ling clan was declared the victor of the battle, and Van was the champion. Van fell from the sky, unable to move, while the fish ran after him to catch him. Finally, everyone knew what had happened, and the girl and her brother were overjoyed. They decided to bring the winner themselves. At the same time, Van was extremely happy, sitting beside the fish, the world calm around him. He had completely forgotten that the remaining things attached to the Fang clan leader still carried a fierce spirit that had left his body and begun devouring Van. When Van saw this, he could hardly believe his eyes. Then, a very strong, fully healed monster appeared before him, and Van was no longer able to move. The monster attacked with a deadly strike. The fish miraculously dodged the attack but was wounded. Van hid it inside his body, searching for any chance to escape, but the monster approached, embraced him, and nearly killed him. Then it unleashed its final monster, attacking Van's eyes, but the monster shattered. There was no escape. Yes, he would die in front of everyone, and no one would remember him. Suddenly, a strange hand emerged from Van's body, breaking the monster and pushing it away. Van had felt this energy long ago, but never knew its source. The hand spoke. "Who woke me now? Do you want to die?" The monster attacked again. Van moved with incredible speed to dodge, calling the hand to appear once more, but it refused to listen. There was no solution but death. Suddenly, that very monster appeared to save him. Yes, the girl's brother had arrived just in time and would take care of him. At this moment, Van was completely unconscious, feeling he was in a different place inside, with a sleeping monster imprisoned long ago. The same monster who had killed the previous body owner before him. Van was unable to control it or know what to do. The foolish girl approached, thinking he was a mighty warrior, trying to seduce him, but Van was controlled by the monster and attacked her, trying to devour her soul. Meanwhile, the brother was busy fighting the monster before him. Time was running out. He hastened the fight's pace, froze the monster with ice, and delivered the final blow. Then he looked at his sister in astonishment and said, "What are you doing, fool?" He rushed to her, kicked her hard, and threw her into the water to wake Van. After Van regained consciousness, he found himself tied up, with the snake holding him. The girl was telling her brother what happened, that Van was the one who had stolen the eelfish and that they had come to bless him. They decided to punish him severely, and what terrible luck for Van. At that moment, all clan members learned Van was the winner. Everyone rejoiced and cheered, unable to believe what had happened. Ling immediately asked the supervisor about Van, but he did not know his whereabouts, saying he heard Van was taken to be punished in the Lon family, and no one knew what would happen to him there. At that moment, Van was walking with them, recalling his memories, saying, "Oh God, I have returned to the very first place I was in. This world is truly treacherous, my friend." The girl's brother heard him and said, "Don't say treacherous." The leader of Ling's wing would never allow his student to say that. Van was astonished and asked, "So you know him? Have you met?" The boy told him he had met him only once in the same place where they were playing chess. Van had mocked him, thinking he was just a pretender who would lose and surrender like those before him. But the boy was surprised every time as Van's power grew insanely. Carried his entire wing on his shoulder and overcame all obstacles day after day. His strength increased until everyone knew his name and cheered him everywhere. At that moment, Van remembered everything said about him, how he was betrayed and died, not knowing what happened. He was about to drown in despair but saw his friends' memories, recalled their words, and everything they had done so far. He felt immense joy. His confidence returned, and he realized he was not alone here. He said to the girl's brother, "Don't worry, I'm not alone. Like the wing leader, I have everyone standing behind me and encouraging me. Without them, I would be nothing." The brother got excited and happy from his words, saying, "What beautiful words." Then he asked about the stolen eelfish and requested Van return it to secure his release. Van did not know what to say and replied, "Man, I roasted it and ate it long ago." The brother became furious and said, "Your punishment will be by my hand and you'll look like you've been harmed." Meanwhile, the rest of the wings sat safely and decided to fetch him in the morning. If anything happened, he was their only hope to get back on track. At that moment, Van was sitting calmly, gazing at the sky, saying, "Thank God, we passed the first test on our path, and what lies ahead will be easy. So, will we continue like this? What will happen to us?" Stay tuned for the second season of Van's Tale, which has not yet aired. When it does, I will publish it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until then, farewell my friend. Leaving only Van's team in the tournament, everyone wondered, would the champion be Van or the Fang leader? At that moment, the Fang clan leader was furious upon learning someone was still alive. He headed to the island to capture him. Van was hiding there, standing with his fish, which was evolving after absorbing the octopus's energy. He had brought a special stone, saying, "This is our only chance to win." The fish began to evolve, and the scene was electrifying. Elsewhere, the girl learned someone from Ling's wing was still alive, and she and her brother cheered for that wing, unaware this person was the one who had harassed her and stolen her brother's eelfish. Van prepared for battle. When the Fang clan leader saw this, he mocked Van, saying, "Prepare to lose." Van replied defiantly, "Face me with all your strength, so you cannot later claim ignorance." The Fang leader's rage boiled as he attacked Van. Van skillfully countered with his fish's help, yet the leader skillfully dodged every attack and lunged at Van with everything he had. Van fled wildly, avoiding his attacks. He approached a tree branch in front of him and toppled the leader to the ground. Van still provoked the leader in every possible way, searching for a chance to defeat him. Suddenly, the leader roared in anger and unleashed bony spikes flying from every direction. The fish deftly dodged the attacks, moving toward the leader's position. The leader then struck the ground with a seismic blow that shook the entire place, sending them flying apart. Van barely managed to block the attack, and the leader could not capitalize on the moment. He launched a legendary second attack. Everyone thought Van would fall, but Van refused to be silenced. He used a new skill, merging with the fish, which transformed into a much stronger form. The old man went mad, gathering all his strength and launching a powerful attack. But where was the fish after its transformation? It had become much more capable of dodging all attacks. The old man was baffled, unsure where or how to strike. Van used a plant beneath his feet to burn the old man, then approached the fish to calm it, saying, "Here, take this." The old man did not give up. He fired lasers from all over and attacked Van, seemingly intent on finishing the fight. But Van moved at incredible speed, evading every attack, unmatched by anyone. The leader focused his entire attack in one spot, hitting the fish. Everyone thought Van would lose, but the dog was there. Van used the dog, making it fly like a plane through the air, dodging all attacks, approaching the old man. Then Van unleashed his final beast, turning it into a weapon in his hands. Ling's wing was still present. One strike would end it all. Officially, Jin Ling clan was declared the victor of the battle, and Van was the champion. Van fell from the sky, unable to move, while the fish ran after him to catch him. Finally, everyone knew what had happened, and the girl and her brother were overjoyed. They decided to bring the winner themselves. At the same time, Van was extremely happy, sitting beside the fish, the world calm around him. He had completely forgotten that the remaining things attached to the Fang clan leader still carried a fierce spirit that had left his body and begun devouring Van. When Van saw this, he could hardly believe his eyes. Then a very strong, fully healed monster appeared before him, and Van was no longer able to move. The monster attacked with a deadly strike. The fish miraculously dodged the attack but was wounded. Van hid it inside his body, searching for any chance to escape, but the monster approached, embraced him, and nearly killed him. Then it unleashed its final monster, attacking Van's eyes, but the monster shattered. There was no escape. Yes, he would die in front of everyone, and no one would remember him. Suddenly, a strange hand emerged from Van's body, breaking the monster and pushing it away. Van had felt this energy long ago, but never knew its source. The hand spoke, "Who woke me now? Do you want to die?" The monster attacked again. Van moved with incredible speed to dodge, calling the hand to appear once more, but it refused to listen. There was no solution but death. Suddenly, that very monster appeared to save him. Yes, the girl's brother had arrived just in time and would take care of him. At this moment, Van was completely unconscious, feeling he was in a different place inside, with a sleeping monster imprisoned long ago. The same monster who had killed the previous body owner before him. Van was unable to control it or know what to do. The foolish girl approached, thinking he was a mighty warrior, trying to seduce him, but Van was controlled by the monster and attacked her, trying to devour her soul. Meanwhile, the brother was busy fighting the monster before him. Time was running out. He hastened the fight's pace, froze the monster with ice, and delivered the final blow. Then he looked at his sister in astonishment and said, "What are you doing, fool?" He rushed to her, kicked her hard, and threw her into the water to wake Van. After Van regained consciousness, he found himself tied up, with the snake holding him. The girl was telling her brother what happened, that Van was the one who had stolen the eelfish and that they had come to bless him. They decided to punish him severely, and what terrible luck for Van. At that moment, all clan members learned Van was the winner. Everyone rejoiced and cheered, unable to believe what had happened. Ling immediately asked the supervisor about Van, but he did not know his whereabouts, saying he heard Van was taken to be punished in the Lawn family, and no one knew what would happen to him there. At that moment, Van was walking with them, recalling his memories, saying, "Oh God, I have returned to the very first place I was in. This world is truly treacherous, my friend." The girl's brother heard him and said, "Don't say treacherous. The leader of Ling's wing would never allow his student to say that." Van was astonished and asked, "So you know him? Have you met?" The boy told him he had met him only once in the same place where they were playing chess. Van had mocked him, thinking he was just a pretender who would lose and surrender like those before him. But the boy was surprised every time as Van's power grew insanely. He carried his entire wing on his shoulder and overcame all obstacles day after day. His strength increased until everyone knew his name and cheered him everywhere. At that moment, Van remembered everything said about him, how he was betrayed and died, not knowing what happened. He was about to drown in despair but saw his friends' memories, recalled their words, and everything they had done so far. He felt immense joy. His confidence returned, and he realized he was not alone here. He said to the girl's brother, "Don't worry, I'm not alone. Like the wing leader, I have everyone standing behind me and encouraging me. Without them, I would be nothing." The brother got excited and happy from his words, saying, "What beautiful words." Then he asked about the stolen eelfish and requested Van return it to secure his release. Van did not know what to say and replied, "Man, I roasted it and ate it long ago." The brother became furious and said, "Your punishment will be by my hand and you'll look like you've been harmed." Meanwhile, the rest of the wings sat safely and decided to fetch him in the morning. If anything happened, he was their only hope to get back on track. At that moment, Van was sitting calmly, gazing at the sky, saying, "Thank God, we passed the first test on our path, and what lies ahead will be easy. So, will we continue like this? What will happen to us?"